Hey, this is Charles again, and testing out a new camera. And while testing it out, I may as well talk about Carlito's Way, Brian De Palma's gangster reunion with Al Pacino. And of course, this is the newest release of the Blu-ray of Carlito's Way, 4K transfer. I mean, it's not real new, but it's fairly new, and it's a special edition. It's got all kinds of special features, a booklet, and I love the cover. The one thing I can say about Brian De Palma movies is usually the original posters kind of suck. Like they're terrible posters, most of them. The Carlito's Way poster, the original poster is okay. It's basically a black and white of Carlitos in silhouette with a gun, but kind of similar to Scarface in that it was also black and white. But I definitely like this cover art even more so. But it is a great, great Brian De Palma film. I put it on my Mount Rushmore of favorite Brian De Palma films. Obviously, I've done a ranking of Brian De Palma films before. And this is just going to be a quick video because I wanted to kind of compare Carlito's Way with a certain movie that came out in the same year, 1993, I think it was. And that's The Fugitive, right, with Harrison Ford. We all love The Fugitive. Who doesn't love Harrison Ford? Who doesn't love Tommy Lee Jones? Great action chase movie. Obviously a crowd pleaser. It was a big hit, critically acclaimed, nominated for multiple Oscars that year. A little surprising for an action film, but we can appreciate when action movies are nominated for multiple Oscars. As many know, Tommy Lee Jones won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for that performance in The Fugitive. However, my hot take is it's nowhere near as good as Carlito's Way. When Carlito's Way came out, it got generally good reviews, did well at the box office, but probably should have done better, probably should have gotten even better reviews. As usual, it's one of those Brian De Palma films that underappreciated when it came out and now is considered a classic. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten this kind of treatment. I think when people went to the theaters in 1993 or 4, I forget what year it was, but when they went to the theater to see Carlito's Way, I think they were expecting this to be Scarface 2, right? Because it's Pacino, it's De Palma. I mean, they expected that kind of over-the-top operatic type of film. It's still operatic, but it's more bittersweet. It's a tragedy. It's a romance. In fact, it's probably Brian De Palma's most romantic film. With great performances from Al Pacino, understated. It's one of his most understated performances, which I actually like. And it's got Sean Penn, not quite understated, but brilliant, almost unrecognizable as Carlito's corrupt lawyer, Kleinfeld. And it's got Penelope Ann Miller at her most radiant. I know it's like one of her absolute favorite roles that she's ever had, and she's great in it. And she's kind of the heart of the film. The star of the film is Al Pacino and Brian De Palma, but certainly Al Pacino is the central title character. But Sean Penn and Penelope Ann Miller are equally important in supporting roles. Sean Penn represents kind of the darkness, trying to pull Carlito, who's a former gangster, he's trying to reform himself. And Kleinfeld, ironically, being his lawyer, wants to pull him back into the streets and crime. But Penelope Ann Miller represents the light as Gale. She's trying to bring him into, being more lawful, being more of a normal human being who's not involved in crime. She believes him when he says he's reformed, and they dream of paradise, right? Of moving to the Bahamas and being legit, and that's really the heart of the story. It's almost 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it. It's got those great Brian De Palma moments, amazing set pieces. There's a scene in the pool hall, which is just classic De Palma. There's a great chase sequence at the end. Oh my goodness. And this is why I want to compare it to The Fugitive. The Fugitive was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for Supporting Actor, obviously, for Tommy Lee Jones. It was nominated for Best Music and Best Cinematography. Now let me ask you, do you remember the music from The Fugitive? Do you remember the cinematography from The Fugitive? I don't really remember. It's all pretty standard stuff. The music is very action music score. I mean, it's kind of derivative. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's just not memorable. Meanwhile, Patrick Doyle's score for Carlito's Way is very tragic, very romantic, action-oriented at times, suspenseful at times, and the cinematography. I think it's Stephen Buram, who's one of, if not maybe De Palma's favorite cinematographer. Just brilliant. I mean, the cinematography, as you would expect from a Brian De Palma film, is immaculate and stylish, but never just for the sake of style. It is brilliant. And I gotta say, the cinematography for The Fugitive is pretty standard. Again, I don't understand it. Now, The Fugitive was not nominated for Best Director, interestingly enough, even though it got all these other nominations. Penelope Ann Miller and Sean Penn were both nominated for supporting roles for Golden Globes, but not for the Oscars. I dare say, as much as I love Tommy Lee Jones, and I actually like overall Tommy Lee Jones more than I like Sean Penn. Sean Penn absolutely gives the better performance as a supporting actor in this movie. Because Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive, he's wonderful, but he's wonderfully Tommy Lee Jones in the movie. He's very charismatic in the movie. I don't feel like you should win an Oscar for being just charismatic. You should disappear into a role. You should give us something, I don't know, really striking. And that's what Sean Penn does in Carlito's Way. Now, I'm not crying over it. He's won plenty of Oscars, so we're fine. But Penelope Ann Miller and Al Pacino, I think, deserved Oscar nominations. Certainly Brian De Palma deserved an Oscar nomination. This is one of those films where the Academy really missed the boat. This is a man, as you know, if you've seen any of my other videos, I feel like he totally has deserved Oscar nominations in the past. Untouchables, you could say Scarface, you could say Blowout, you could say Casualties of War. Many to choose from. Carrie, Obsession, who knows? Lots of great movies. Carlito's Way might be the best of all of his sort of mainstream films. I mean, depends on if you consider Casualties of War a mainstream film or not. That's obviously top two for me, Casualties of War. But this, I know Brian De Palma himself says he couldn't make a better film than Carlito's Way. So this is a movie that kind of has everything, plus the screenplay written by David Koepp, based on a couple of novels. Brilliant screenplay. I would have nominated the screenplay. This movie, Carlito's Way, is so beautiful, beautifully written. It's almost poetic. And of course, so is the cinematography. As I said, it's kind of got an operatic style. It's almost Brian De Palma's romantic opera. And it deserved multiple Oscar nominations that year. And I've always said this, and I believe it to be true. If it said Carlito's Way, directed by Martin Scorsese, there's no doubt in my mind Carlito's Way would have had multiple Oscar nominations and probably wins. But because it's Brian De Palma, and because he's so iconoclast, and he was so unpopular for some reason with the Academy, they were never going to nominate Carlito's Way for anything, and that's really unfortunate. But if you have never seen Carlito's Way, I mean, it is an absolute must. Please do yourself a favor. It doesn't have to be the special edition. It could be any version. If you can find it streaming, if you really want to watch a great movie, it's not your typical gangster film. I'm not even into gangster films. I like 2 gangster films, and only 2 gangster films. Get Carter from 1971 with Michael Caine, and Carlito's Way.